Let's talk about the Dark Lord, the Sauron of our era. His Right Honourable Sir Tony Blair.
Yes.
He has a plan for Britain.
Yes.
Turn us into a cyberpunk dystopia.
So, I mean, you've got this document that we're going to be looking at in a second, but I think it may be worth outlining for the audience, some of the audience who may not know that Tony Blair is not merely the former prime minister. After, in 2007, he, handed over to Gordon Brown. He didn't go off into the sunset and play golf and kind of put his feet up. He set about immediately building a global network based on the contacts that he had built up as a world premier, and set up charitable institutions, or as we like to call them, NGOs, non-government organizations, all around the world, especially in Africa, and also in the Middle East, where he was working as a peace envoy to the Middle East. The irony.
I know.
And also he did consultancy work for governments around the world. So if you were, I don't know, the president of Kazakhstan, you could hire Tony Blair and he'd come and give you Machiavellian advice.
Well, he would send you a suite of SPADs, basically, special advisors who will come in and basically tell you what to do and how to do it.
Yes, and a few years ago, some of the newspapers kind of latched onto this. They were like, hold on, why is the Saudi Arabian government giving Tony Blair millions of pounds? How is Tony Blair like so rich? And so what he did is he consolidated all of that network that he'd been building up over time into the Tony Blair Institute, which, as far as I can tell,
the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change.
Yeah, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. And as far as I can tell, this has a dual purpose. The first purpose is to continue the essentially missionary work that he's doing in Africa, which has long-reaching consequences. For example, probably a lot of people don't know that during COVID, it was the Tony Blair Institute responsible for rolling out the vaccine all across Africa with funding from the Bill and
the Gates Foundation.
Melinda Gates Foundation.
When you say doing his missionary work, to be clear, the religion is globalism.
Essentially setting up outposts for the global empire in Africa. And so it comes with a suite of stuff. So he'll go to an African president, I'll give you advice. My advice is, I want you to invest in digital infrastructure. Oh, I've got a mate, Bill, or, here are my contacts in Microsoft. They'll come and build your infrastructure for you. We maintain ownership of the data and all of that. But, it would be good for Africa to, join the 21st century. So that's one side of what the Tony Blair Institute does. The other side, as far as I can tell, is that they write policy white papers for the British government or for politicians in the West and in the EU, but especially in the British establishment.
I think when we say the British establishment, the British government, people will say, well, hang on a second, Tony Blair was a Labour Prime Minister. We have Conservative Prime Minister. What are you talking about? To which, for example, Connor, when he went to the Conservative Party conference last year, saw the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change booth at the Conservative Party conference.
Yes, and in fact, I watched the Tony Blair Institute event at Chatham House a while back because we follow him pretty closely.
Yeah,
and who was there? But the Secretary of Defence, Ben Wallace, was there. Shortly before Jeremy Hunt became the Chancellor of the Exchequer, if you remember, in that kind of unofficial coup that took place, who did Jeremy Hunt interview on his own little podcast, with Tony Blair. And they were clearly Macy, because on the podcast, Jeremy Hunt's little son was there, and he was like, "Oh, good to see you again." So they're clearly, I guess what we're saying is that the Tory establishment are as kind of fond of Tony Blair as Labour are. And on the Labour side of things, of course, the party was captured by Jeremy Corbyn, but
cleaned out by Keir Starmer, who's taking direct direction from Tony Blair.
And when we say direct direction, this is documented that Keir Starmer hired Tony Blair literally to give classes to the shadow cabinet. here's how you be new Labour.
And just as a quick thing, don't think that this isn't happening in America either, because Tony Blair went to the Conservative Party conference, some GOP conference, where he was received like a hero.
Absolutely. And in fact, Tony, I mean, this is the
I know how the man does it, to be honest.
The mind-boggling thing. Do you remember when Trump made the deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia? The
he wasn't
Accords. Who did Jared Kushner thank for his pivotal role in the Abraham Accords? None other than Sir Tony Blair.
Yeah.
So when we say this guy is a bit like Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, we really mean is that.
Yeah.
I mean, here's something that the audience can do, which we have learned to do. Whatever the story is, okay? I'll give you a great recent example. Niger. Whatever, if a country comes up, just type in the country's name, Tony Blair or Tony Blair Institute. 2 weeks before the coup in Niger, Tony Blair Institute had moved their bases from Burkina Faso to Niger, their whole operation. So essentially what happened in the coup is that Putin and the lads helped to kick out Tony Blair from Niger.
All I'm saying is you can follow this with hashtag Dark Lord Watch on Twitter, where people regularly, whenever Tony Blair is doing something, they just tag hashtag Dark Lord Watch so you can keep up with what's happening. So I thought what we'd do is take a look at something. But first, if you want to support us, go to the website, go and watch our new epochs on Attila the Hun. It's not in any way related to Tony Blair. In fact, it's the total opposite style of running a kingdom or an empire, and one, frankly, I would love to return to. But no, Attila the Hun had a really interesting life and an unapologetic life, I think is the best way I can put it. And he's a really interesting character. The fall of the Roman Empire, which actually does kind of mirror the fall of the West at the moment. So anyway, go and watch that. It's excellent. So I found this paper from the Tony Blair Institute, The Future of Britain in 2023, Ideas to Transform the Future of Britain. You excited? I'm excited.
Well, it's inevitable, Carl.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
I know. I can't put to scroll down on this, so I'll just read from it. So it begins with part 2. What does Britain need to thrive? And the Tony Blair Institute tells us it needs the, quote, strategic state. Feel good about that? We've gone from the fascist ethical state. That's presupposed. Of course we're ethical. Now we're strategic.
So is that just their way of saying managerial?
Yes. Yes. This is what they call the managerial state themselves.
I mean, there's quite a bit more to it. Where Tony Blair says strategic, what he really means is a public-private partnership, which you may have heard from certain Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, where Tony Blair is also a high up, by the way.
Oh, I know.
And touted to take over from
the fusion of the fusion of the big state and big government is not necessarily a new idea.
So essentially Blair's vision here is he says, well, if you look at a company like Microsoft or Apple, they have trillions, like literally billions, if not trillions of dollars in assets.
Of capital that could be deployed, and we don't.
Capital that is larger than literally the budget of the British government or of most nations. So wouldn't it be nice if they could build some bridges for us or build some infrastructure or
digital infrastructure? Certainly.
Well,
they've got the capital investment that governments no longer do. So essentially you can do Keynesian economics just using them instead of the state's money, essentially.
Well, this is, of course, the core of this document because, I mean, just to read very quickly from it, the technological revolution is the single biggest force changing the world today, yet with other big periods of upheaval, political leaders and government have been slow to adapt. So you can see the whole framing is, look, there is a managerial technocracy that is taking over the world, and it's happening whether you like it or not. So really, we need to be at the forefront of that, controlling that, and bringing that into existence, or else someone else will control it, and it won't be us. And that's the entire theme of this document. So we'll go to the next page. So they say, look, delivering this requires a new vision and framework, including a commitment from the highest political authority to leverage the transformative power of technology for a mid-21st century vision of the state. That's terrifying, isn't it? The highest, I mean, what's the highest authority in Britain?
Is it Tony Blair?
Well, that's the thing, I don't know.
I mean,
But it might be.
in theory, it's the king.
Yeah,
maybe
in theory, yeah.
Because it's interesting when you hear him talk about what he's done in Africa. He literally just refers to him as my presidents. He's quite clear that he ranks higher in the power structure.
Mind, at least, yeah.
I mean, the scariest thing about this, and the thing that I find scary about Blair in general, is that he's building Skynet. He's building the Matrix.
Yeah, he is.
Here.
He is.
This is what and essentially, as far as I can tell, the government contracts some massive corporate, whether it's Apple or Microsoft or whoever else, could be Elon Musk.
Yeah. Well, let me carry on a second. So the next thing is far deeper state investment in technological and AI era infrastructure, utilizing cloud and modern software, a more agile, responsive, and targeted state in which the citizens have a digital identity and control their data. Do we think that we're really going to be in control of anything here? Do you feel like you're going to have any real agency in this?
Well, we're not going to own our data, certainly.
Well, they think that you should, actually, which I agree with. I mean, that is nice. But I don't think that the room for maneuver is going to be very broad. I think you're going to have a very narrow range of things that you can do.
Well, you will be able to log onto their system and see your data, which they are holding on your behalf.
And they'll give you a little control panel. Here are the 5 things you can do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And delete won't be one of them.
Yeah, exactly. A new treatment of data as a comprehensive asset, which can stimulate innovation in health. So they're going to have complete health monitoring of your current... Because, I mean, eventually you'll be chipped and it'll give them full spectrum data on your physical condition. And then when they're finally tired of you, you'll be flushed out of the pod like in the Matrix and put into the liquidizer. I'm not even joking, actually. I think that's genuinely where this is going. A greater alignment between the government and private sector, here we go, to mobilize effectively behind clear purposes such as around climate. And a greater appetite for risk and innovation. Oh, God, I'm so glad that the managerial technology is prepared to take risks with my life. With greater expertise from the outside informing direction. So going on to page 7. So they say, look, this is going to be a new national purpose. I didn't realize we had a national purpose. I don't want a purpose. I'm okay at the moment, thank you. So they say that science and technology have been the driving force of progress for much more modern age. Advances in technology will allow us to live longer, healthier lives, to travel across the world and into space and generate food and energy at scale. The United Kingdom has been at the forefront of many of these breakthroughs and was home to one of humanity's great leaps, the Industrial Revolution. Another revolution is now taking place with developments in AI, a technology with level of impact akin to the internal combustion engine, electricity, and the internet. So incrementalism will not be enough.
And you want to make a great leap forward, is what you're saying.
Yes. This is precisely the language. The state must be reoriented to this challenge.
I mean, I hate to bring up film analogies, but do you remember one of the Christopher Nolan, I think it was the final one, The Dark Knight, where Batman gains access to all of the mobile phone data and he literally has it all mapped out in front of him. And he's like, ooh, I could use this as surveillance, but I'm Batman. This is wrong. I'm not going to do it. These guys in the same scenario are basically going,
I'm Batman and I'm evil.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it.
Just like, let's do it. Let's build the...
I don't think they had that question for themselves. They didn't stop and ponder. They just moved straight through that.
No, they watched that and thought, that was a great idea.
But there's a second film, which probably people won't remember, but back in the 90s, back in the very early days of the internet. It was called The Lawnmower Man.
Oh, I remember.
Do you remember that? Man, and do you remember The Lawnmower Man disappears into the web, essentially? But do you remember what happens? Access denied.
That's correct. Yeah.
You didn't say the magic word. And this is the thing that is so worrying about this. It's like, okay, yes, convenience. Yes, all your stuff is there at a touch of a button.
Until you have been determined to be an undesirable and...
You've done wrong thing.
Well, that's why they want to own the digital infrastructure, because everything connects to it. So there will be no access denied because it will be their system.
But until they choose, you don't get access.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the entire system being so interconnected, they'll only need to press one button and everything that you do on your daily basis will be completely shut down.
Well, and also they can customize it. They can set up a whole bunch of permission flags, and we have already had a social credit system in this country.
And they'll do that with the digital money. It'll literally come to, this money isn't, you can't spend this money in an unapproved zone. That's what's going to happen.
I'm not exaggerating, but like you could become like a carbon criminal. For example, you have gone beyond your carbon allocation for the year. Yeah. And then we're not even exaggerating, just like the Soviet Union, where the ruling class would get special perks and privileges that didn't, proletariat had a different set of rules from the ruling class. We're pretty sure that Sir Tony is not going to be a carbon criminal.
Probably not. Yeah. So they say that our priorities for reform include strengthening the Office for Artificial Intelligence so that it provides better foresight function and better support for government to deal with technological change, creating Sentinel, a national laboratory effort focused on researching and testing safe AI with the aim of becoming the brain for a UK and international AI regulator, building AI-era infrastructure, including compute capacity, remodeling data as a public asset, with the creation of highly valuable public good data sets. So you're not even going to own it. The government's going to own your data.
Well, what he's really saying there is this is going to be a substantial area of growth.
Yeah.
Make sure you build in the state as you go, and this is how you do it.
Yes. But and then requiring a tiered access approach to compute provision, under which access to larger amounts of compute comes with additional requirements to demonstrate responsible use, and securing multi-decade investment in science and technology infrastructure, etc., going into the future. So he wants to set up a centrally managed government-run AI brain that is presumably going to be tasked with running the functions of government. It's going to be running the NHS, it's going to be running the budgets, it's going to be running whatever the government currently runs.
And they literally called it Sentinel. Do you think they...
Yeah,
it's like they're writing a dystopian sci-fi movie or something.
Yeah.
You can imagine. I'm like, immediately when you said, "Oh, we're going to create Sentinel," I'm thinking of like HAL from 2000 Space Odyssey.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about all the film references, but this really is. This really is what this is.
All dystopia really is imagine a utopia and then think about the steps that you need to take in order to get there, and these are the steps.
Yeah.
But my question is, I remember whenever I've watched Blair with the guys from Microsoft and so on, is there a voice there saying what could go wrong? What could go wrong? Is there a voice in this document saying what could go wrong? What are the downsides?
No, it's just this is inevitable.
So, they've got a bunch of proposals. So they want to centralize all of the pensions into one savings pot. Why not? They want to reform planning to build more critical infrastructure faster, which includes a national process for consent for national infrastructure projects. So it's impossible to think that at some point the British public won't be able to say no. Will be able to say no. Like we want to build this giant Sentinel AI grid across the UK. We don't consent. Yeah, we don't care. That's not going to stop.
We already signed the contract with Apple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Defining onshore wind and digital connectivity as critical infrastructure. Onshore wind. Nuclear power plants. Anyway. Using the power of AI and digital twins to accelerate consultation, planning, and build. So basically, put it into the computer. This is what we want. The computer will give you a white paper at the end of it. And you just press the appropriate button, and the computer will say, yep, we'll get all those contracts sent out. That'll all be done. And you will have to do very minimal work as the person in charge, Mr. Blair. Sir Blair. He wants to introduce a digital identity for a digital age. Government should deliver a single digital identity, giving users visibility of and control over when and how their data is accessed and used, utilizing a decentralized model without creating a new central database that could be vulnerable to hacking or leaks. Okay, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, that was his one great defeat of his years in power, the IDs.
Yeah, well, and decentralization was a big thing as well, but that's gone poorly, hasn't it? And allowing people to use their digital identity to access commercial goods and services as well as government services, which, that is just the worst, isn't it? Do we think
it's Mark of the Beast, isn't it?
Yes. Do we think Tommy Robinson's getting a digital ID? Do we think he's going to be able to get flights wherever he wants? They literally deported him from a holiday in Mexico. Like, this is, and that just required his old-fashioned passport.
I just want to back up a second. I was a little bit worried about the consolidation of all the pensions. And this could be coming to a state near you. British pensions #managed by BlackRock. Because that's what it would be.
Well, they manage loads of pensions anyway, but that's exactly what it's going to be. And the reason that he gives for wanting to create, literally, it's called GB Savings One. It's not even called the National Pension or something. GB Savings One. A £400 billion super fund in order to be able to more effectively reinvest the pension money. So it's all pure managerialism.
But it's essentially saying we've run out of money and therefore we are going to take yours. We're just going to put a gloss on it.
Yeah,
it's just stealing, and that is why I've never put money into a pension, because I've always found it ludicrous that at some point before I hit 65, it won't be stolen.
Oh yeah,
and this is it happening now.
But they are all, I mean, to be clear, they are also then, and it will be somebody like BlackRock, even if it isn't them, it probably will be, to be honest, because they do pensions.
Yeah.
They will then be, I mean, deciding, well, we need to put it into these kind of climate change friendly areas, or we need to put it into this woke organization. And this is how they end up getting funding for all their stuff, because they're controlling what is effectively your money. They're investing it on your behalf.
How about an NHS that's not focused on health? That's not focused on just illness, sorry, it's focused on health. So the NHS will be concerned about your weight, for example. They'll be monitoring that, presumably with the chip in your skin and your digital identity, giving each person their own personal health account delivered through the NHS app and owned by the individual. It also, I love the owned by the individual, yet through their structure, through their infrastructure.
Like, but the clue's in the name. It's the NHS app. It's not your data.
Exactly. You didn't make the app. You've got no control over where the information goes. You just sign in.
You can just view it.
Yeah, exactly. You can just view it. Developing a new NHS cloud structure, so all the health data is held centrally within the existing systems, and turning the genomic medicine service into a fully fledged part of the health system, providing whole genome sequencing to all patients and supporting the move to prevention, well-being, and personalized care. So we've mapped your personal genome. We know what likely is to come up in your life as a health condition, and we're prepared for that.
I mean, what I'm seeing
What
here
could
is
go
like
wrong?
your phone is going to be like, do you really want that McDonald's? You want to think again? Because we know
it'll be nudge at first. It'll be nudge at first, but then it will say, no, you've exceeded your calorie allowance for today. You can't have that. That's what it will come to.
And because you'll be paying through your phone,
and it'll say, no, this transaction
like access denied.
Too many carbon credits.
You can't.
Yeah. Too much health credit. This is the future that Tony Blair is building for us. But of course, we're all going to have a quality education, of course, powered by tech, establishing a digital learner ID that will contain all educational information, enabling a personalized education for every child, increasing parent choice and access to quality education by giving schools the freedom to provide hybrid lessons and parents the right to request online classes delivered by other schools, and overhauling Ofsted so that accountability is based on real-time insights geared towards a continuous improvement of standards. I've got no doubt that the standards just go through the roof.
Well, they're talking about freedom and choice, but what they're actually saying is we're going to credentialize it.
Yes.
So you're going to have freedom within the narratives which we have selected for you.
Yeah, you've got a very narrow range of freedoms. You can have options 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be a Jordan Peterson lecture.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Or one of yours, yeah.
Or one of mine.
Indeed. Yeah, it's not going to be anything like that. And of course, they're going to bring about safer communities. They're going to put prevention at the heart of policing. Yeah, okay. And what I love about this bit is very, I would say, value-free, but it doesn't consider the ideology of the people involved in the system at all. They're going to put prevention at the heart of policing. That's racist. Develop modern and flexible workforce that will be diverse. Good luck catching those criminals, ladies. Embedding a new focus on professional standards and responsiveness. Oh, yeah. Establishing a new national force to tackle threats that cross force boundaries and require a strategic response encompassing counterterrorism, serious organized crime, and cybercrime, and using technology more intelligently to prevent criminality, including digital identity to tackle online fraud and an expansion of facial recognition technology. Aren't you just so glad to be living in the future?
See, the thing is that, just to put a counterfactual in here, all of this stuff is bad if it's run by our enemies.
I mean, all of this stuff is probably bad if it's run by us.
But
I could live with it. It was run by us.
If it was truly value-free, for example, this is the kind of base day.
Look, there is no truly value-free. It's our values.
If it was Mecca Bentham, Carl.
Oh, God.
Right.
We're not.
I mean, can you imagine what a completely value-free facial recognition technology? Be like, oh, we've recognized this typical criminal looks like.
So
you understand what I'm saying?
The phrenologist AI.
That has already happened. So this is the this is the West Safer City rollout, and whenever they've done a trial, they've done effectively what you've said, and then scrapped it because it's racist.
So it could be that. It could be. I'm just saying.
How did the AI turn out to be a bunch of alt-right racists?
Yeah, we just need to turn down the pattern recognition a bit.
I mean, there is this kind of weird alternative universe where digital ID actually completely solved illegal immigration. reduces crime to almost zero.
It's not going to happen. But anyway, moving on. Right. So they've got a decade of electrification. Of course, everything they want, and they literally say all crucial infrastructure, they want it all to be done by renewable electrical generation. Now that you might think, hang on a second, what's wrong with that? Well, it can be turned off, right? When your car is full of fuel, that can't be turned off. The electricity board can be denied to you from your chip. Everything will be literally triangulated in an insanely complex system that can be triangulated exactly on you at all times. That's why that's bad. And of course, the final thing is they want a better relationship with the EU, which basically means voluntary alignment with EU regulations on goods and regulatory equivalents of sanitary and phytosanitary measures. So basically, whatever the European Union says and does, we're going to make sure that we do it because we want it to be part of the European Union anyway.
So all of this is moving the decisions as far away from the populace as possible.
Yes. We don't want them to have any delusions.
Yeah. And then we're going to say that they're free.
Yes. They're free to choose from
what we offer,
a range of options that are never going to change. And possibly they'll be restrictive. But yeah.
This is the true rule by the managerial expert class.
Yes. This is the full spectrum managerial cyber technocracy. Is literally being laid out by the Tony Blair Institute, and I think that they're serious about it. So prepare yourselves for the future, because the Dark Lord Tony Blair is probably going to bring it about.
It's actually there was a book called the New Utopia, or Utopia by
so sick of the word utopia.
I know. It was Francis Bacon wrote a utopian book. I forget the name of it now. Where he
wasn't it literally called Utopia?
But he literally, Francis Bacon literally imagined this kind of totalitarian island that was being run by a scientific managerial expert class.
Yeah, right.
And in a weird way,
that's like basically the next Labour Party manifesto.
They've just.
This is literally Plato's Republic.
They recreated it.
This is literally what we're looking at. But anyway, yeah. So get ready. It's coming. Be prepared.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, why not visit our website where you can watch the podcast live, in full, uncensored, and for free from 1 o'clock UK time every weekday. And while you're there, for as little as £5 a month, you can get all of our paywalled premium content, such as this interview I did with Helen Joyce, author of Trans, where we debated whether or not post-woke, the Conservatives and the TERFs can remain allies. Very contentious. If you'd like to see the rest of what we're putting out, you can follow me on Twitter at @con_Tomlinson and the rest of us over at @LotusEaters_com. Till next time, goodbye.